What's cracking? Welcome to Griffin and Bass. He's Griffin, I'm Bass. Before we dive in for everything with the final episode of Hard Knocks, the kickoff to the NFL season, Lions and the Eagles, Michigan State Spartans against Akron, and the Michigan Wolverines against Hawaii. Got to remind you guys to like and subscribe everywhere you can find us, be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We got full episodes on YouTube, as well as DetroitSportsNation.com. And we welcome you to our second Small Business Friday. Today's highlighted business is I Can't Without Coffee, an apparel company that makes clothing for men's, women's, and kids, as well as household decorations and accessories. From shirts against decaf, bold and edgy coffee mugs, wall art that defines the caffeine lover you are, and much more, visit www.ican'twithout.coffee. I Can't Without Coffee is life in apparel that celebrates the good feeling of a successful next step and how coffee accompanies us along the way. Once again, that's www.ican'twithout.coffee. All right, Ryan, Hard Knocks, final episode in the books. This one was a rough one. It's all about the cuts, who made the team, who didn't. We also got a fun appearance from Eminem. I said last time that the last episode hit you in the feels. This one definitely hit you in the feels when it was dealing with certain players that we liked getting cut, certain players that were on the line but made it. Obviously, the success of certain rookies that made the jump, like Malcolm Rodriguez and obviously Aiden Hutchinson. But this one was, I don't know about for you, but for me, this one was a rough one, dealing with all the cuts and everything.
I thought it was the best episode of Hard Knocks that we've gotten so far. We had the cuts. We knew a lot of the cuts just from following the team. Of course, we didn't get to see the conversations until the episode aired. But a lot of guys that we thought were going to be cut, a lot of them ended up coming back on the practice squad anyway. So even though it was rough to see them cut, you knew there was a quote-unquote happy ending for them because they're still getting paid, however much it is to be on the practice squad, which is still a pretty handsome paycheck. So it was kind of tough to feel bad for some of those guys, knowing that they were just, right back at it. They probably didn't even have to leave Detroit after they ended up getting cut. So I think that took a little bit of the sting out of it. And I love the part with Eminem. I wished it was a little bit longer, but that was funny to me. Big fan of his music, and when he does spots like this, I think it allows like his humor to show out too, and I enjoy that part of it. Other than that, I think that was kind of it. It was cool seeing like Deuce Staley deciding which running back he was going to cut, and they're saying, no, this guy can do this guy can do this, and this, and so I think more so than the cuts themselves being interesting, just hearing the coaches kind of talk through their process with some of their players is what I took most out of this episode, and it's what I came away with being the most interested in.
Yeah, the Eminem part was funny, where he's talking about, playing with your boys, and then you get on a field and you throw it as hard as you can, and it goes like 10 yards. That was pretty good. I was surprised with all the running back stuff that we didn't see a lick of Justin Jackson. I didn't show nothing. It was Godwin. It was Craig Reynolds. Like, there was nothing even mentioned about Justin Jackson and the whole situation with him, being let go, but then being put on the practice squad that we know now, obviously. But the fact that it wasn't even shown, we didn't even see him, they didn't even talk to him, talk about him, nothing like that. A lot of focus on, the guys that we have been seeing a bunch of. Obviously, they talked about Blau and Boyle. You saw Boyle getting cut. And then Blau was discussed, but they didn't show him being released. It was just kind of awfully mentioned when they were talking about they're going to need a quarterback because Blau was picked up by Minnesota, which was really funny when, Dan Campbell's, giving his morning speech to the guys, talking about, what's next and everything. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, Nate.
Dude, he literally looked like
in the front row, like right in front of you. He didn't even know he was already there.
He had his jacket on and everything. Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah.
Let him buy a house first or something.
No, definitely. And then the pimp stuff. I was really, because I didn't know. I don't know about you, but I didn't know that Pimp got picked up for the practice squad with the New York Giants. And so I had no idea until Hard Knocks obviously showed it to us. showing him trying, doing running routes and all that, dropping the first few passes that went his way, and then starting to kind of get comfortable and making the catches. And I honestly thought it might have been an editing scheme, where like we're going to show a few drops and make it look like it's in the beginning. But then the coach that was talking to him was like, that perseverance of dropping the first few and then just kept coming back and, pushing through, and bam, here's a contract, you're signing with the New York Giants. So I was happy for Pimp that this ended up being a good thing for him, where he's not just out of football.
It was cool to see, and I knew he got picked up by the Giants, but I didn't know that Hard Knocks was going to show it. I thought they were just going to stick on the Lions. So that's the part I did appreciate, was them following Pimpleton and Blau around to their new homes, essentially, and giving, the viewers closure on those guys who they had been watching all series long, and if they just stuck on the Lions, it's like, oh, well, now they're gone. Like a Game of Thrones character who got killed or something. But getting that follow-up, and in Pimpleton's case, getting a happy ending. I guess in Blau, too, but they focused, obviously, more on Pimpleton. And it was cool to see him picked up, and I actually do think that him being on Hard Knocks helped the Giants get some more exposure to him. And, they could see his speed, they could see what he was able to do, which led them, in my opinion, to invite him to work out in the first place. And then, he took advantage of that and made their practice squad and is going to continue his NFL dream. But I did appreciate that they did some follow-up on some of the guys that were cut who they had been following throughout the 5 or 6 episodes that we got.
Yeah, and it was cool to see, like, the strong character that Pimp turns out to be, or at least what we've seen, is, when he's talking to his sister, on FaceTime from the hotel room after it's all been said and done, and she's like, Mom already told me. He's like, I know. And he wasn't devastated, he wasn't salty, he wasn't sour. Like he took it for what it was, and he was appreciative of it. Talking about, being able to play in Pittsburgh, at the Steelers stadium, like how cool that was. Like just everything about it was like, it was very uplifting, and showed the kind of guy that I think he is, at least, and what he's being portrayed as, and I hope that's who he is the kind of guy you would want in your locker room. Like his head is up and he's looking forward, and like I appreciate that about him, and that was shown throughout, and it was shown even after he was let go.
I'm rooting for him. There's certainly no reason not to. So I hope he's able to make the I hope he's able to make the roster with the Giants over there. And then shout out to Chase Lucas too. I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention during the other episodes, but I liked his story a lot. I wish they would have focused on him sooner.
I mean, you're making me root for a Sun Devil, which is never okay for me, but I definitely like what I'm seeing from Chase Lucas, obviously with the almost game-clinching interception in the first preseason game, to recovering the onside kick in the second game against the Colts to help seal the win. No, not the Colts. Sorry, the onside kick against Pittsburgh to keep the ball and keep moving, because why not? It was just like him pushing forward, and him, that internal feeling of thinking he's about to be great, and his own coaches are like, well, I ain't gonna say that.
He kept saying that, like, Coach, I really feel like I'm about to be great. I really feel like I'm about to be great. And credit to the coaches, they did their best to try and keep him humble. Like what you just said, hey, like you can be, but you got to keep working. And every time he was saying, I think I'm about to be something special. They're like, well, I didn't say that, but you got an opportunity now, so take advantage of it. Mm-hmm. So that I liked too. I liked how the coaches were picking up some of the guys. I liked Hank Fraley talking to Obina Eze, who got cut and then is now back on the practice squad with the Lions. Just about, hey, you need to keep doing this, and still coaching them. They probably knew nobody was going to claim them and that they'd get him back on the practice squad, I guess. But to see them still coaching them after they essentially don't have a reason to anymore, if they're just going to cut them, that was cool to me. And I think it's one of the benefits that the Lions have of having basically like an all former player staff, is these guys are just a little bit more connected to the players and to the feelings, especially, on like cut day, than some of these other coaches might be, who would just kind of like grinded through being a coordinator or whatever.
Yeah, and obviously seeing how hard it is for Dan Campbell, for Aaron Glenn, for Deuce, for Brad Holmes, of the having to do this, it's humanizing, and it's nice to see that this isn't just a part of the job for them. Like, this is something they don't look forward to. You can see it on Dan Campbell's face, like how much it hurts to let go Like, yeah, like that has to be so rough. Like, I don't envy the part of the position at all. The WTF moment of this entire season, I think, for Hard Knocks, but definitely this final episode, is Malcolm Rodriguez going cowboy boot, hat, clothing shopping in like downtown Detroit. Like, so, where is that store? How is that store?
I didn't know
we had that store in Detroit.
It might have said it and I missed it. I do believe there is a shop in like downtown Birmingham that is like leather, like cowboy hide and leather or whatever. Because I thought I've seen it before, and I was like, that's just a weird thing. That's a weird store to have in Michigan. Apparently it's just going to come into use. And it looks like all this stuff's really expensive. He was getting moose boots and alpaca vests. Like, I didn't understand. I didn't understand what was going on. But shout out to Rodrigo for expressing himself, staying true to himself.
Okay. I don't know about moose. They definitely do ostrich and gator and snakeskin. I know that for sure. I don't know about moose boots. And then even on top of that, there's a country song playing, and the country song is like, I'm a Detroit cowboy.
You know
like, I was like,
how
wait,
deep they probably had to go to like find that one. Like, you could have played I'm a Cowboy Baby or something. Or Save a Horse Ride It. Like, you could have played any of those songs.
Right? They found a Detroit cowboy song. And I don't even think it was
I didn't think it was either.
So
I thought it was at first.
Props to them for going that deep to find that.
Whatever, they made it work. Shout out to them.
And Rodriguez talking about like trying to buy jeans and like his only problem is like getting him over his like quads and hamstrings with how big they're. This fool comes out with like they look like XXL jeans, but on him they look like skinny jeans. They so tight on his legs.
Yeah, I don't. Man, as long as you start playing on Sunday. And I know we're going to get to the Lions in a little bit, so I guess spoiler for that discussion. Apparently, he's going to be a pretty big part of the defense on Sunday from what I saw on Twitter today.
Well, let's get to it. I was going to make more jokes about him, like, don't wear cowboy boots with shorts. Like, they were showing him, like, trying on cowboy boots, and he had shorts on. And it's just like, that is just an all-time ridiculous look. There's a reason these guys wear, like, jeans with their cowboy boots, because that is just funny as hell to see a guy in cowboy boots and shorts on. But, yeah, let's get to the Lions. I think we've talked Hard Knocks to death. The series is done. It was a hell of a success in my mind. I thought they were 5 great episodes. It was great to see our boys up close and personal. But, yeah, let's get over to the Lions and the Eagles, which will be on noon on Fox this Sunday. NFL season kicking off this week. We have the Rams and the Bills kicking off tonight while we're recording. But for everyone else of us that are not fans of the Rams or the Bills, all of our games are coming this Sunday and then Monday night. So Lions-Eagles, noon on Fox on Sunday. The all-time series, 18-16-2. The Eagles lead it. Pretty close series. Last year, not close at all. The Eagles won 44-6 on Halloween. Predicting something a little different this time around, I think, Ryan.
I don't think it's going to be 44-6. I think the Eagles are going to put a healthy beating on the Lions, though. Yeah.
Oh, spoiler alert.
I mean, I like the Eagles a lot. We were, and we might still do it at one point. Like Super Bowl predictions. We did our division predictions last week, and we both picked the Eagles to win the NFC East. And they're a really, really well-rounded team. They have a kind of big question mark at quarterback with Jalen Hurts, but I would say Jalen Hurts at least isn't bad. Like, the question is he just like okay, or is he a good upper echelon quarterback in the NFL? Regardless of kind of where he lands on that spectrum, though, I don't know that it matters when they're going up against the Lions. I think they just have so much talent everywhere else, and the Lions might be without Frank Ragnow. He didn't practice today. Vitae didn't practice either. So the offensive line is starting to, deteriorate before we even hit week 1. And the strategy stuff I'm hearing from the Lions, whether it's moving Sewell, and they were moving Ragnow around, and now he's hurt, so he's probably just not going to play anyway. But moving Sewell around to right guard or like wherever, I don't like any of that. I think the Eagles have a good defensive line. They have Fletcher Cox. They have Brandon Graham on that defensive line, and a strong defense overall. They added to it in the offseason. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson they just traded for. They have Avonte Maddox and Darius Slay, obviously, former Lion, and then whoever else is in that secondary is good too. His name just escapes me right now. But it's a really good team. I think the Lions are going to have a lot of trouble with a running quarterback, which Jalen Hurts can certainly be. And then they also added A.J. Brown, and they have Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert on the other end of them, like as weapons. And I just think I don't like that recipe at all for this Lions defense, and I don't know that our offense is going to have a good amount of success against that defense if their offensive line is dropping like flies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% with you on this. The trenches are where it's killing us right now, and this is the area that we've been focusing on as far as building up. But then, like you said, Halapoulivaati Vaitai is on injured reserve. The man that they were trying to replace him, Tommy Kramer, is out as well. Has a back injury, and then everything you were talking about, where they were talking about moving Penei Sewell to right guard, moving center, Frank Ragnow as well, and they're both hurt. So Penei's not hurt, but just moving these guys around to try and fill these gaps. And the whole hype was behind this, starting 5 front line that is now not going to be there. So what are you supposed to do when, exactly like you said, you have Fletcher Cox, you have Jordan Davis that they brought in now, in the draft. You have these guys, you added, Hassan Reddick. You have Jason Hargraves. You have Brandon Graham, like you mentioned. There's all of these guys that are going to disrupt what the Lions are going to try to do. And with how bad we've seen our defense be, it's all reliant on the offense putting up so many points that the defense can't ruin it for them. Well, when our O-line is this banged up, Philly already has this talented of a D-line, and now they're going against a banged-up O-line, which is going to shut down the running game, which is going to cause problems for Goff. And then not to mention that you have a situation with our wide receivers versus their cornerbacks, and then you flip it around to their wide receivers versus our cornerbacks. It doesn't sound like a good recipe for the Lions to win this football game.
It
just
doesn't. One thing that the Lions want to do, you mentioned the offense has to score a bunch of points so that the defense can give up points and we can still win games. The offense also wants to control the pace and control the game and run the ball. And having a healthy offensive line will aid in that, but they don't have that right now. And with the Eagles having such a good defensive line, specifically the interior of their defensive line, where you're not going to be able to just run right up the middle against them like you might with some other teams. And not that is necessarily DeAndre Swift's strength. We heard Deuce Staley yell at him, cut inside, cut inside, cut inside. Stop trying to bounce outside. But the Eagles are really good on the inside. And now if you're forcing a team who wants to run the ball to just go outside, usually that's not something that is going to work out for you. And with, even again, Jared Goff versus Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts is better than Jared Goff. I don't know that either are that great, but I would rather have Jalen Hurts as my quarterback. So even if you're like, hey, man, the Lions are okay because Jalen Hurts stinks, I still think the Eagles have the quarterback advantage in this matchup. And there's been a lot of talk about the Lions' weapons. Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course, came on last year as a rookie. Everybody's really excited about him. Still have T.J. Hawkinson, who's probably a top 8 or 9-ish tight end in the NFL. And then, obviously DeAndre Swift. But, they still, of course, don't have Jamison Williams. This is going to be DJ Chark's first game with the Lions, first real game. He's played in the preseason. Of course, he's went through training camp. But I don't know that the chemistry is all the way there yet between him and Goff, to where even if these were weapons you were excited about, I just don't think they're going to be at full strength game 1 of the season. Not that I think the Eagles are going to be at full strength either, but I like where the Eagles are at right now more than I like where the Lions are at.
Yeah, and if we go off of a little bit of what happened last year, now again, these are a little bit different teams, especially the Lions. They've been really trying to change personnel and bring in guys that can make this team better. The Eagles have kept a lot of status quo because they got a good team going. They got a good build going, especially in the trenches. But they held Swift to 27 rushing yards on 12 carries last year, and so that's not a good look, especially with what we're talking about with our O-line and how decimated it is to start the season versus their ridiculous D-line. And then on the flip side, the Eagles controlled everything last year. They ran the ball 46 times for 236 yards. 19 of those times were for first downs. Hurts only had to throw the ball 14 times. He only had to throw the ball 14 times last year, and he also ran for 71 rushes on his own. Like 71 yards on his own.
Do rushing? Because I think it's a really big weakness for the Lions, and if Hurts was able to expose it last year, the fact that the Eagles have more weapons this year, I don't think that bodes well for the Lions at all, because we know their linebacking unit is still not good. I mean, they're about to possibly start Malcolm Rodriguez, or at least play him a lot. And we all love Rodrigo, second most requested jersey according to the coaches on Hard Knocks, but it's still a 6th-round draft pick, like from this year, that you're just throwing in there and expecting to make your defense better. And the scary part is that he might make it better, but that means your defense is already really bad, and it's probably going to continue to be really bad. And there's so many reasons that I don't have hope for the Lions in this game.
Well, yeah, and let's get to another one of those reasons. Another one of those reasons: A.J. Brown on one side, Devontae Smith on the other. We've seen our secondary. It's not good. It's not good. And Devontae Smith has a ton of chemistry with Jalen Hurts. They did it in college, and they started to do it last year. Devontae Smith had a really strong rookie season. He finished 4th in receiving yards, 6th in receptions. He was 5th in targets. He was tied for 4th in touchdowns. And then you add A.J. Brown, who is, now you have like an argument of who's won, because they both have the possibility to be legitimate number 1 wide receiver. And then you add in, like you said, Dallas Goedert as tight end. Like, there's 3 passing weapons right there that I don't know how the Lions are stopping any of them. Tight end has been our weakness as far as stopping for the longest time. Just leave them alone or don't even guard them, apparently. And then between Ayo and Jeff Okudah, who I'm still not sold on, I don't know. They're probably putting Onwuarie on A.J. Brown most likely, so they're going to put Okudah on Smith. Smith's going to run right by Okudah. We were seeing practice squads guys running by Okudah. Like, Smith's going to dust him. Like, I don't know how we're going to be staying with single coverage on any
I don't
of
think
these
we
guys.
are, and I think that's scary when you can't, bracket these guys in coverage or, like, play double teams and take a man away because, your linebacking unit is too weak. So now Hurts has the ability to just run more freely, right, if you're trying to, like, shadow some of these receivers. And Devontae Smith is a guy that Lions fans should be very familiar with, because before we got Jameson Williams this year, he's who a lot of the fans wanted to pick last year. So they were eyeing every Alabama game. Heisman winner, Devontae Smith. They were super excited about him. There's a lot of Lions fans who wanted them to pick him at 7 over Penei Sewell. And of course that didn't happen. But Lions fans, they know what Devontae Smith can do, and it's like I don't like. Of course, it's the NFL. The Lions might win this game. I'm just trying to think of some football reasons they can do it, and I just can't, man.
It'd be a whole lot of next man up and really stepping up in that position. That's the only way. And I don't see that from this team. We need our starting 5 offensive linemen to be healthy and playing together, to control the line of scrimmage, to really have a chance in any of our upcoming games. And not having that is just a death knell.
Yeah, I mean,
for
and outside
this
of
week,
some fluky cliche, we got to win the turnover battle. Like, yeah, if they block a punt and return it for a touchdown, that increases their chances of winning tenfold. But I'm just thinking about things that are, how the game realistically plays out, and I'm with you.
Okay, so I don't know about you. I was thinking of a final score prediction, and in my mind, 34-23 seems to fit well for this game. I think the Eagles are going to put up 34 to 40 points, and I think the Lions are putting anywhere from 20 to 26 points. So 34-23 is the final score in my mind for this game. That's hoping the Lions.
I was thinking like 37-17, but yeah,
nothing. We're talking about adding a little bit on one of mine and taking away a little bit of the other. So we in the same realm. But we're rooting for them. Obviously, hope they pull off the win. Of course,
no.
And we're just not seeing the football facts
if you
behind
want
it
a little bit of hope,
it
kind of ties into betting. Home underdogs in Week 1 in the NFL, which the Lions are traditionally, are like really, really good. Not just against the number, but like winning outright for whatever reason. Now, not all of them win, and I think the Lions will be part of the not all of them that win. But if you're going to look for some hope, teams in the Lions spot usually do well in Week 1. So take it for what you will.
Yeah. Well, we will obviously react next week.
Hope they win, though. Go Lions.
Our show that comes out on Tuesday. It'll be Monday for us. Yep, absolutely. Go Lions. We hoping they win. We're just not seeing the football reasons for it to happen. All right, let's jump down to college. Ryan, our Michigan State Spartans are hosting the Akron Zips. I don't know how they get this name, the Zips, but 3 o'clock Saturday on Big Ten Network. The Spartans are a 34.5-point favorite. Back-to-back MAC opponents to start the season for Michigan State. But that is basically where the comparisons end for Akron and Western Michigan. Western Michigan has the talent and the ability to compete for a conference championship. Yeah. Akron does not. Since the end of 2018, they've won a grand total of 4 football games. They were winless in 2019. They beat Bowling Green in 2020, Bowling Green and Bryant last season, and they opened up this year with a slim victory over FCS opponent St. Francis last weekend. They fired their former head coach last year who went 3-24. They brought in Joe Moorhead, and if his name sounds familiar, former head coach at Mississippi State, offensive coordinator at Oregon as well as Penn State. So he's been in the Big Ten. He knows about Michigan State. And this game, Ryan, will be the first meeting between these two schools since 1914. When Michigan State was Michigan Agricultural College, and they beat Akron 41-0 in 1913, and then beat them 75-6 in 1914, where George E. Carp Julian scored a school record 7 touchdowns in that win over Akron in 1914. So it's been a while since we've seen the Akron.
I was just talking about George E. the other day. It's crazy that you brought him up. Also, Joe Moorhead, shout out if you guys are real, true, loyal listeners to me and Matt. Joe Moorhead, great Sports Carnage inside joke. Do you remember that? They don't care. So Michigan State, 34.5 points favorites. They scored 35 points last game. So it seems like if you're going off that, they'd have to shut out Akron to cover the spread. But Michigan State, it sounded like Tucker wasn't happy with the performance last week. So I expect them to come out sharper, and I expect them to come out with a little more like oomph and flash and something to give the fans excited about. So I would expect more big plays. And like you said, Akron, one of the worst teams in the MAC. Western Michigan's not a good team compared to Michigan State, but they're a good team compared to the rest of the MAC teams that Michigan or Michigan State or whoever might play. Western should be a contender in that conference, and Akron is absolutely not going to be. So the spread makes sense to me. Jacoby Windman, again, my guess is they're going to dial up a lot of blitzes and a lot of pressure to honestly try and drum his stats up, because he had 4 sacks week 1. He was the Walter Camp Defensive Player of the Week. I think he was Big Ten Player of the Week too, defensively anyway. And I think it's always good for your school to be getting that kind of exposure, right? And I think Michigan State and Mel Tucker are well aware of that. So I think they're going to use this game to try and prop up Windman again and try to get him another 3 or 4 sacks. So that way, through the first 2 games, Jacoby Windman has 8 sacks, and everybody's like, oh my God, this guy's just a revelation, right? And people are talking about your program, which fares well for Michigan State if they're getting in the backfield a bunch. But, of course, it doesn't fare well for Akron. And I just expect Michigan State to be sharper. So the number does make sense to me. But I can also see a scenario, I guess granted they would still cover, where Michigan State wins 35-0, and people just kind of aren't too happy about it, right? I think people want that 50-point performance like Michigan had last week. I think they want Michigan State to go out and just drop a bomb on Akron. Western obviously didn't quite happen that way. But win a game 49-7 or 63-10 or something like that, just so you could, you look around college football and you see other big schools, other ranked teams beating up on their cupcakes like that. And then you had a quote-unquote close game with Western Michigan. And I think Michigan State is kind of cognizant of that, and I think that that's something that they will try to accomplish. And just week 2, they should clean up some of the stuff from week 1. We talked about it. 3 drives inside the 40, missed field goal, interception, and fumble. I doubt that happens. So I'll give Michigan State even just an extra 10 points if you're being generous, and they scored 45 last week, which is what I think people are obviously looking for instead of scoring 35, right? You want to score more points. That's the type of analysis you come to Griffin Bass for.
Right. And backing up exactly what you said, Mel Tucker, was not happy, and he is challenging his players to raise their intensity level, and he doesn't want them sitting on, winning the game was not enough. Winning at 35-13, and now it looks like a good victory. It was 21-13 at the end of the third quarter. So don't give me 35-13 when it was a one-score game after 3. That's exactly what it was. And then, we make it look easier at the end as far as the score difference. Mel Tucker doesn't care about that. He wants it to be, look, it was 21-3. It should have been 42-10. It should have been 50 points, So, he's not happy, and he shouldn't be, because that was far from a perfect performance. And they are in the perfect position to show that. This team from Akron, they allowed St. Francis to throw for 265 yards last week. They allowed them to rack up 450-plus yards of offense. And they also allowed 6 sacks. So we're talking about our defense and what they bring to the table. And there's no reason to think that Michigan State shouldn't absolutely dominate this game from whistle to whistle. From beginning to end, there's no reason to think that Michigan State is not going to absolutely beat the ever-living crap out of the Akron Zips. So, with that said, because we both obviously think Michigan State is going to do just that, let's play a little bit of over-under here for you, Ryan. We've got to bounce back from last week. Our expectations were too high. They are just as high this week, though.
Do you
and
have
the Spartans should come through on
record
these.
of what we did
Over-under. I'll have to come back with that.
We can just start this week.
For afterwards for next week's
show.
We'll put it all together. But all right. Peyton Thorne, over under 275 yards passing.
I'll go under, because if they blow him out, they're going to throw in Noah Kim or Kateen Howers or Catton, whatever his name is.
I mean, he connects on 4 of those bomb touchdowns.
True.
That's 200 yards right there. And then he's just got a dink and dunk for another, 76. True. The secondary's terrible. I don't know how. There's no way that the Akron secondary is keeping up with Jaden Reed, Keon Coleman, Trey Mosley. No chance. There's no chance. So there's absolutely every opportunity for Peyton Thorne to air it out early and often. He should have 250 yards at halftime. And then you can take your foot off a little bit and then, run the ball after that the entire time. All right. 115 rushing yards for Berger.
I'll go over. I can see him breaking off a 50-yard run and then just getting, 5 or 6 yards of carry outside of that. I'll go over 115.
Yep. I'm with you. I'm going over as well. 70 yards for Broussard.
I think Broussard's a little bit better than Berger, and I think eventually he'll take him over. I'll go over for Broussard, too. All
right, 3.5 total touchdowns for Thorne. Total touchdowns. So running as well as throwing. Oh, no faith. No faith. I'm going over. We're blowing this team out, all right? We're putting up 50-plus points on this team.
I know, but if Berger and Broussard are going for 115,
all right, and then 5.5 sacks.
Touchdowns, too.
Yeah, exactly.
75 to 8 again.
That's fine.
108 years ago?
Yep. All right, and then 5.5 sacks for the Michigan State defense. I was thinking about making it, stupid high.
This is going to go over, honestly. But I figured
let's make it
we talked about it in the lead up to the season, man. I really liked the front 7. And you got one guy got 4 last week. I wouldn't be surprised if Windman, again, had another 3 this week. And then you're just looking at anybody else to rack up 3 more from what your number is. So, yeah.
All right, let's put your money where your mouth is. 2.5 sacks for Windman.
All in on Jacoby Windman. He's going to be like Shalik Elwin.
All right, so the only one we're disagreeing. So we're disagreeing only on Peyton Thorne. I think he's getting over 275. You think he's going under. I think he's getting over 3.5 touchdowns. You think he's right at 3. So, all right, and then final score prediction. I got my favorite Super Bowl, which is Joe Montana absolutely decimating the Denver Broncos and John Elway, 55-10.
I was going to say 56-7.
Well, either way, we got them covering the 34.5 point spread, and obviously we will react following the weekend.
Spread, not quite as
you
big
guys on our next show. No. Definitely not quite as big as the next game we were talking about, the Michigan Wolverines against the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, 7 p.m. on Big Ten Network. So you can go right from watching the Michigan State game, give yourself a little break, don't even have to change the channel. And then your Michigan Wolverines showing up, taking on Hawaii, a 51.5 point spread, Ryan. Ridiculous. The largest spread in Michigan football history. against these Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, and with good reason, because just like Michigan State starting their season with back-to-back MAC opponents, Michigan opening their season with back-to-back Mountain West teams. And the Rainbow Warriors, rough start for them. They're 0-2. They've been outscored, Ryan, by Vanderbilt and Western Kentucky, 112-17.
I mean, yeah, Vanderbilt beat them by this spread, 63-10. So there's no reason to think that I guess Michigan can't. I will say something for everybody out there is Matt is in Central Time Zone, so that is Eastern Time. If you are listening in Eastern Time, it's 8 o'clock. Matt's just in the Central, but it is 8 o'clock Eastern that Michigan plays. No, you're good. I just didn't want anybody to be in the comments Saturday at 7. Like, you MFer, you told me. So for Matt, it's at 7. For us, it's 8.
So we got 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock for Michigan State and Michigan games. Not 3 and 7.
You're fine. I just want to make that correction. I mean, Michigan's going to blow the doors off Hawaii, just like Vanderbilt did, just like Western Kentucky did. It's an enormous spread, obviously, 51.5. And J.J. McCarthy is starting this game. Cade McNamara is still going to play, but it's going to be interesting to see kind of how they how differently they call the game. You know, last week Cade only threw 18 passes. Is it because he looked so bad that they only gave him 18? Was the plan to give him 25? And then he started off 1 for 6, and they were like, all right, we're not going to do that anymore. So it's going to be interesting to see not how JJ plays, because I think everybody thinks he's going to play amazing, right? Because it's against Hawaii. And if he doesn't, then it's just another whole can of worms that Michigan has to deal with. But they shouldn't have any problem at all with Hawaii. I will say, and I guess it doesn't have any relevance, it's just an interesting tidbit. Their last biggest spread was against UMass, where they were 45.5-point favorites or something, in the Rich Rod era, 2010, and they won that game, I think, 52-47, or 42-37, something like that. They won by a very close margin, not even close to the, not even close to what the spread was. I don't foresee that happening this game. Outside of course, what happened last week, Michigan under Jim Harbaugh just feast on these cupcakes. Like, honestly, they're probably better against the spread versus these cupcake teams than anybody else in the country, because Michigan always blows them out. And I think they'll stick probably to a heavy running game. Again, I think they'll let JJ show off his arm a little bit, but JJ can also stick to the running game and be just fine. And Hawaii, of course, doesn't have the ability to compete with that. And then you're throwing into the fact that it is Ann Arbor at night. I think most Michigan fans want J.J. McCarthy to play and obviously play well. So there's just going to be more electricity in the air and in the atmosphere than there would be on a typical night game against some scrub team. I actually think the Big House is going to be pretty lit come Saturday night. And I think Michigan's going to take full advantage of that and put just a monster beat down on Hawaii.
Look, I hope it's lit at the Big House, especially for the Hawaii fans, because this is a team right now. Look, Hawaii Stadium is being rebuilt, so they're playing in a stadium that holds 9,000 people. It's literally the smallest in college football, okay? And now you're going to literally the biggest in college football. So this is a rare experience for Hawaii to get to be in the situation. And so I hope for them, I hope it's packed, I hope it's rocking, I hope they get to be there and see just, what football can really be with a huge, full, sold-out stadium. It's going to be interesting to see exactly what you were talking about with the Michigan offense, because you have a quarterback competition, but Michigan could literally run the ball every single down and roll over Hawaii. They could run for 350 yards and have no problems and win this game easily. You're testing your quarterbacks. That's what Jim's doing here. He wants to see what these guys can bring to the table before they get to the real competition. So are you going to force the issue and force passing down so that JJ can show what he's got versus Cade showing what he's got? Or because this game's not, there's no, I don't care if Hawaii takes the opening kickoff for a touchdown and then scoops up a fumble on the very next play by Michigan and starts off 14-0. They're not winning this
They
football
wouldn't
game,
win,
and
but
it's not going to be
in that
close.
scenario, if they did get 14-0, or if they just scored 14 in general, then for Michigan to cover the spread, you're asking them to score 70 points, which is like
okay. Let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. Do you think Michigan's
I don't.
covering this 51.5
so
spread? This is a big spread. 51.5
scores
points.
10 points,
I don't
like
either.
you need to score 62. Not that Michigan can't, because Vanderbilt scored 63, but there's only so much time in a football game.
Like, and there's also the mentality of coaches, who look. We've got them beat 48-3, and there's 6 minutes left in the game. Like, are you really going for touchdowns at that point just to beat a spread? Now, look, defensive players, they scoop up a fumble, return it for a touchdown. They pick off a pass, return it for a touchdown. Things happen where you can get extra touchdowns in the end of games when it's already blown out and it's over. But offensively, if you have the ball, you're generally not trying to do that to a lesser opponent and
you
just
saw Orgy get in the end zone
embarrass them.
So, yeah, Michigan could play their backups the whole game and still win this game by 3 or 4 touchdowns. I wouldn't pick them to cover the number, though. That number's so stupid. 51.5.
I think you're there's no reason to, like, there's just crazy football things that have to happen in my mind for you to cover this spread where you have just beaten your opponent so badly you still wanted to score a few more points just to get over the 51.5 number. Like, it just seems wrong to me, like, that they would cover this spread from a normal
Cade
football
comes
game
in
point
and they're
of
up
view.
35-0 and he just wants to throw 5 touchdowns himself. Say, hey, look at me. And they go up 70-7. That's a feasible
answer, actually. So if JJ does his job, and at halftime it is exactly what you said, it is 35-0. JJ threw for 3 of the touchdowns, and they ran for the other ones. Maybe the defense got one, and it's over already at halftime. All right, JJ, you did your job. Good job for putting Cade in, and Cade knows he's fighting for his spot now. That's a reasonable answer as far as why they would continue to push the score.
It is, but I still feel like it's kind of a joke because I do feel like if Cade went in there, obviously they would call run plays. They'd be like, hey, like, this is what we're doing for the most part. And if he audibles out of too many of them, I think Jim would just pull him and be like, all right, like, we're not doing this. Like, we're not going streaks. Bring yourself back in.
Right. Like, Timmy Chang would have to have said something before this game to just besmirch Harbaugh, besmirch Michigan, to cause them to be that much of a prick that they're just going to keep running the score up. Like, yeah, it can be done, but I don't think. First of all, I don't see that from Timmy Chang, and I just
78-0.
I just don't see it happen.
4 or 5 years ago or something. So it can be done, and Michigan's done it before, but I don't expect it.
Yeah, I don't. Well, and so let's give some of the. I don't even know. There's nothing to give. The Rainbow Warriors.
They might be the worst team.
Everybody. They hated their
country.
former head coach, so all the players left.
They actually might be. Yeah, they're really bad.
Like, the whole team hated the old head coach so much. They all went to the transfer portal, basically. And so Timmy Chang came with nothing. They completely replaced their secondary. There's no returning starters there whatsoever. Their strength of their team is their offensive line. That might be the strength of your team in the Mountain West. It's not the strength of your team against Michigan's run defense. Like, it's not happening. Their front seven, you're not. Yeah, they had 7 sacks just like Michigan State did last week, and so they're going to do the same thing this week if they want to. There's no reason. They don't know who their quarterback is. They go back and forth between 2 guys, Braden Shager and Joey Ellen. Neither one has been great. One threw for 230 yards and 4 interceptions. The other one threw the ball 11 times for 1 pick. Like, there's just nothing there. They have a running back who's not bad. He's rushed it 28 times for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns through the first 2 games, but they don't. There's nothing. There's nothing for Hawaii yet. It's a whole new regime all over the board. So there's no reason to think this team's going to do anything. So let's get to over-under. Doing the same thing for the Michigan Wolverines. So this one, a little bit more run-oriented than the Michigan State one as far as numbers we're looking at. So Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, 1.5 touchdowns for each of them, over-under.
Each.
Well, you can do it. They're individual over-unders. Just the number's the same. You can say over for one and under for the other. My bad. The number's the same for both. 1.5 touchdowns for Blake, 1.5 touchdowns for Donovan.
Man, I'll go over for Edwards, under for Corum.
Ha-ha! I'm going to flip it on you. That's exactly what I was thinking. Great. Good job. All right. I'm going to go over for Corum and under for Edwards. All right. 2.5 touchdowns total for J.J. McCarthy.
I think he's going to want to show. Yeah, I think
between passing and running,
the first 5 touchdowns there might be 4 passing touchdowns.
I agree. 175 passing yards for J.J. Okay, 135 passing yards for Cade. And then same number for Michigan as the Michigan State defense, 5.5 sacks. All right, and then I don't know about you. We've talked about this already, but I'm going to go 51-6. They beat the hell out of Hawaii, but they don't cover that 51.5 points.
Yeah, 63 to
2
14.
field goals for Hawaii.
They don't cover the spread.
Hey, you're giving Hawaii a chance to score some points. Good for you.
A fumble at the 10-yard line when they're down 28-3.
Yeah, it's going to be ugly. Again, though, I hope the fans show up for this game. I hope they pack the house because this is a rare occurrence for Hawaii to play in a stadium as iconic as this one is. It's the biggest one in all of college football. 110+ thousand people. Like, they don't get that chance very often. You're not the Mountain West, certainly not. Maybe they're playing someone out of the pack, but even the Rose Bowl's not that big. The Coliseum's not that big. Like, you're not getting this chance very often. So, well, I mean, I don't. You think the crowd's gonna be that mean against Hawaii? Like, there's no reason. They should be like golf clapping for Hawaii if they get a first down.
The big house crowd.
This game's gonna be ugly.
I guess isn't that intimidating. I'm not gonna feel too bad for these kids though. They still get to go to school in Hawaii, so they got that going for them.
True story. All right, that's gonna do it for us. Thanks for kicking it with Griffin and Bass. For Ryan Griffin, I'm Matt Bassin. As always, Wu-Tang is for the children.
Go white.
Go green. Go white. Go Lions. We'll see you guys after the weekend. Peace.
Hey, Ryan Griffin here. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Griffin and Bass. Be sure to give us your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to click the bell to receive the latest notifications from DSN and subscribe for breaking news, community blogs, polls, contests, and other content.